what I'm dealing with, for one. Also, I've worked previously for animal injury attorneys, so we dealt with persons that many of them on the lower socioeconomic scale, unfortunately, also working out in the field. That's who you deal with. There's no rich people working out in the one-on-one. I can say that. You've got to work with no funds. But I think my temperament and perspective dealing with people of all different walks of life, but particularly lower income persons, I think I just have a unique perspective that gives me insight into what they're really dealing with. Thank you.
Okay, so that's another good question.
100% cotton.
100% Cotton, that's me, Lori Cotton, Judge Lori Cotton. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit why I wanted to become a judge, because there were judges that came before me that I watched and learned from. How many of you remember Judge Futch? All right, Leanne and I both practiced in front of Judge Futch for a number of years. He taught me so much, and that was deliberate on his part. He made us work, he taught us hard lessons. Sometimes it was, one of my cases got dismissed, but he, gosh darn it, made sure I knew what I was doing in that courtroom. Judge Pope is another judge that I try and emulate in my courtroom. A very formal courtroom. The courtroom is one of the last places in the world where we're formal and everybody behaves appropriately, hopefully. But I bring that to my courtroom, and you don't have to wonder what kind of a judge I'll be, because I'm already that judge. But the other thing I will tell you is I have a very formal courtroom, but there's a lot of compassion behind what I do. I listen to each person individually. I've even been accused of taking a little bit too long to think sometimes on the bench, but I'll tell you what, if that's you standing there, you want me to take that with compassion.
Ann Barnes. I have had the opportunity to practice in front of almost every single judge in Marion County. The only two I think I haven't practiced in front of was Judge Cotton and Judge Helios, because she was just appointed. And in being in the different courtrooms, the one thing that I see that most people that enter those courtrooms want is someone to listen. And I will be that judge that will listen. The majority of the people that are coming into court, they don't have attorneys. They don't understand what the law is. They don't understand what they're actually doing in the courtroom. And so I want to be that judge that listens, but also make sure that I can explain to them that I have to follow the law regardless of how much education they have. So I'm bringing the willingness to listen.
My name is Renee Thompson. I will bring my civil background and experience to the bench. And I think that's really important because, as you may know, the jurisdictional thresholds for county court have changed. No longer is it just small claims to 15,000. The court has now increased those thresholds to 30,000, and next year they're going to be 50,000. So the types of cases that are coming before you are more complex, and the docket numbers are rising. So you need someone with a background and experience in civil court, and that's what I bring. Over 20 years experience in litigating county matters, litigating civil matters, and mediating in county court. I was a volunteer mediator for the first 8 years of my practice in county court, handling all of these types of disputes. So it's important to have somebody who has the problem-solving abilities to not only be able to deal with the matters before them, but to deal with the parties that are before them. Because you're dealing with self-represented litigants, and you're also dealing with folks who have attorneys. It's a wide range of issues, and you have to have the ability to handle all of that.
Okay, a couple of you want to start thinking about questions. I don't think we'll have time for one or two audience questions after this one. So, Mr. Harris will be up again next. So, if you see inefficiencies or problems in the court system as a judge, what would be your way of dealing with those issues? How would you address problems in the court system?
One of the, I'd like to indicate, I work for the county attorney's office, but I work for the Board of County Commissioners currently. There were quite a few things that I identified as inefficiencies dealing with matters that are litigated. Things can be solved. The fact is, there's limitations on what the clerk can do, there's limitations on what defense attorneys can do as far as a docket. But one of the things that I've identified as what I want to do is, instead of having court dates be provided at a later time, basically as at the earliest possible point, provide a court date for individuals so they know what day they need to enter the summons, and then you have to possibly find the person, just like with the matter that was resolved through hearing last week. 5 different addresses we were trying to locate someone. They were evicted from a property, they were living at a hotel. We finally got them served at one of the individual's jobs.
Time.
So, okay.
That is a great question. And I pride myself in the efficiency in my courtroom. I have the lowest number of county court cases. There are 4 judges. When I took over the docket, there were 1,700 cases on my docket, and as of Monday, there were 1,003. And that is done by hard work. I lay eyes on every case every month. And if the attorneys aren't doing something, I make them do something. I set hearings. I set things that are going, and I'm not sure what he's talking about, because people do get a court date when they walk out of the courtroom. We're not gonna not have a court date set. I make sure that that happens because it needs to run efficiently. The Florida Supreme Court has said that judges need to control their dockets. That is a new thing, and you know why we need to do that? Because attorneys don't want to do work sometimes. Some attorneys get paid more the longer it takes to litigate something, so I'm going to push them. My criminal cases do not get continued to the next docket. When we have cases come in, we have a 6-week cycle, and we are going to resolve all of those 90 cases, 150 cases, whatever it is. I don't grant continuances unless necessary.
Just to advise Judge Cotton what I'm talking about, the fact is not all cases immediately get a court date. I can take that because I work at the county attorney's office. The petitions we file are not given a court date until it is filed and that person is served with a summons. So that's the correct answer. Thank you.
Leanne Barnes. Being a county court supervisor, one thing that we have to deal with is the different efficiencies in the court system. One thing that Judge McKean used to do is he used to have us meet every 3 months to talk about issues that were going on in the court system. And when I say us meet, what I mean is everybody that's in charge. It was the sheriff, it was the chief of police, it was the bailiff chief, it was the chief of my office, the chief of the state attorney's office. When Judge Cobb is talking about those attorneys not working, if I heard it, then I'm getting on that attorney and they're gonna be working. So one way to deal with efficiency is to make sure that all parties understand there is a deficiency in the system, because people don't know. If the judges don't tell me that there's a problem with my attorneys, I will not know unless I'm sitting in courtroom with them, and I can't do that all the time because I handle my own document. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that when there's a deficiency, we all have to take a part.
Renee Thompson. We found out about inefficiencies in the court during COVID. And one of the ways that was resolved was through technology. And that's something I think is very important, and you all need to realize that your judges need to be well-versed in technology. Because if you're going to appear at a hearing via Zoom or any other remote proceeding, it's by judicial discretion. You're not allowed to appear without the court granting you the authority to do so. So if you like the ability to do that in a remote fashion, you have to have a judge who's willing to allow you to do that. I was the technology chair for the Florida Bar. I also teach technology and law practice management to law students at the University of Florida. It's something I'm very comfortable with. And I think that provides efficiency, especially in a time where we need to have remote proceedings. Why should a litigant have to take an entire day off of court to come in for a 5-minute hearing that they can handle on their laptop or their computer? Now, it becomes more difficult in evidentiary hearings.
Hi, I'm Danielle Roos. I'm sorry, I haven't said that every time, but I'm Danielle Roos. Something that is different that I think that is very important and maybe a little bit behind on now is diplomacy and being able to take criticism and being able to listen to other agencies and seeing what the problem is and working together to get that resolution. If there is a backlog, if there is something slow going on in a docket, then it needs to be addressed. And then if it's something that the judge can fix, then the judge can fix it. If it's something that the clerk can do, we can work together to get that resolution, because we're there working on citizens' pay. We need to make sure that that money is used wisely and efficiently, and we do not need to have people sitting in court until 7 o'clock at night waiting on a hearing. We need to make sure that everybody is willing to work together, and I think that as somebody that has worked in most courtrooms, seen a lot of judges, I think I could bring that.
I'd like to double down on that technology point that was raised. So I'd like each of you to take a minute to talk about your comfort level with technology and how you see technology impacting your role in the future. Judge Cotton.
Judge Cotton, 100% Cotton. So I already do this, so I know exactly how I will do it because it's what I'm doing and it's working. In civil cases and small claims cases, I allow the litigants a choice. They can either appear via Zoom or they can appear in person. Because some people are not comfortable with Zoom. Some people don't have the ability to have that technology. Maybe their phone doesn't have great service and we end up running into a problem. So I allow them to come in the courtroom. So what that looks like for me is whenever I'm doing a civil hearing, I'm doing it in the courtroom. Because we may not know ahead of time whether or not they're going to come in person or via Zoom. So I'm there, available for somebody to come. And we usually, I would say maybe about 15 to 20% of people show up in person. People like the ability to show up on Zoom. I'll tell you what though, it drives me crazy when people drive when they're on Zoom. You would not believe some of the things they do. So I have a low threshold for anything that's going to cause public safety issues. So that we have those types of issues. Criminal cases don't lend themselves as well to Zoom, so most of those are being done in person now.
Again, Leanne Barnes. I agree with Judge Cotton. While she's on Zoom, we're on Zoom. So we all have to learn Zoom. We have Google Meet. When COVID shut everything down, we had to do all of our hearings by Zoom, including my mental health hearings, including the criminal hearings also. So I'm very efficient in running Zoom and running meetings and trainings in my office using technology.
Renee Thompson. My comfort level with technology is very high. In addition to having served as the technology chair for the Florida Bar, I was asked actually to train lawyers and judges during the pandemic on how to utilize Zoom hearings. And I traveled the state talking about this issue to help create competency for attorneys for technology. I was actually on the committee that helped institute technology credits for attorneys in order to keep their licenses. So they have to maintain an amount of CLE that they get every year, and I was on the committee that helped recommend that attorneys have to get an additional 3 hours during that cycle in technology training. Why? Because the world around us is changing, and we have to keep up with all of the things that are happening in the technology world to improve efficiencies for you, the citizens of Marion County. It's important to me, and it's important that our lawyers and our judges have that degree of competency.
Danielle Roos. I feel like I'm very proficient in using the technology nowadays. Before COVID, I was working with some computer technology for my office, working with videos and all of that stuff. And then once the COVID hit and we had to go to Google Meets or Zoom or whatever, it was very fluid transition for me. I have no problems working any of that, and I feel like in a courtroom, it goes with the flexibility and being able to work well with others. You really have to be able to see what the case requires, see what type of case it is. if you're allowed to do Zoom, because I know for evidentiary hearings, sometimes you're not allowed to do Zoom. But if you can do it and it saves time and it saves taxpayer money, then I'm all for it.
William Hurst. I think Zoom has been a tremendous benefit to all the practitioners, particularly the persons in private practice. When I was in private practice, I remember on one day in court in Tampa, the land and Orlando, all in the same day, just completely running around the madness. But what Zoom does, or these electronic hearings, it permits someone just to remain in their office. And it's just, you don't have to have delays because traffic is an accident on I-4 or something. The only limitation, and actually as one of the assistant county attorneys, there's been only one in-person hearing since the onset of COVID. Other than that, we've been doing Zoom proceedings. There was an attorney out of Tampa that they would just exchange exhibits. The hearing went very smoothly. We didn't have to come up from Tampa, and we got the matter resolved. The only limitation I've seen is when persons don't have adequate connectivity. So they're talking and it
Time.
freezes.
Right. So as a sitting judge, many of you are very well connected to the community as we're learning tonight. How would you analyze or deal with potential conflicts of interest? You know other parties, you've been involved with things in the past. What would you do with those types of cases as part?
And Judge Cotton will tell you when she comes up, if you run into a scenario or a case where maybe you've handled a case before, that's before you, sorry, and Leanne Barnes, we would have to recuse ourselves. And from that case is something that you can't handle, and it's fair to basically everyone. If you know something about a particular person or you know something about a particular case, then that person comes before you and they're not gonna think you're gonna be fair if you know something about them. So we don't have a choice. There are rules in place that you have to abide by, and you would have to recuse yourself. If you don't recuse yourself, then it's on the parties to disqualify you. So they have to file a motion to disqualify.
Renee Thompson. I had the privilege of serving as the Board of Governors representative for the 5th Judicial Circuit. And in my capacity as the governor for the circuit, I had to review all attorney discipline matters that came before the grievance committees here in the circuit. And I can tell you, it's a very difficult position to be in because you are reviewing matters of your colleagues, of others who you practiced before and work with, and the issue of conflict of interest comes up regularly. And I can tell you, I had no qualms about recusing myself from matters from individuals who I may have known or have some type of special knowledge that would have required my recusal. I think that's your right as a party to have a judge that you believe is going to be fair and listen to the matter on first impression. So if that's asked of me, I have no issue with that.
Danielle Roos, I almost went into my state college, sorry. I have special experience in this. I have been for the last 10 plus years on the City of Ocala Municipal Code Enforcement Board. And if you've been in Ocala for a while, you start to grow roots, and my father has grown some roots. And sometimes you knock into one of those. And I have no problem recusing myself from an issue if there is an issue that may not come across as fair or impartial. That doesn't hurt me at all, and it shouldn't hurt the parties either. I want the matter in front of me to be solved in the most fair, legal, rule-abiding way. And if it means that I can't make that decision, that's absolutely okay with me.
William Harris. As I noted, our family's been here a long time. There's going to be a lot of people that I know, a lot of people that know my family. One of the things that I've ever been incumbent upon me is to sui sponte, recuse myself from a matter if it's going to create any problems for the parties. Sometimes that's done if there's an ongoing disagreement with an attorney and a judge. But as far as litigants that might come before the court, something that was commonly done is if there was a conflict, the judge would often advise the parties that they know of the individuals before them. They might be part of Elks Club or Kiwanis or something. And the parties could at that point decide if they wish to waive the conflict. That's what would happen periodically at least. Some people are uncomfortable with that, but many times it wasn't a concern for the party and they would waive any conflict. But the court does have a duty to remove themselves from the case if they feel it would possibly create a appearance of impropriety. Thank you.
Judge Lori Cotton, 100% Cotton. All right, so I've actually dealt with this issue 3 different ways in the past week, so I can tell you exactly what happens. Now, even just today, so Mr. Harris has several criminal defense attorneys who are big supporters of his campaign, and they are regularly filing motions for me to recuse myself and be disqualified from the cases. Just signed one of them this afternoon. I sent it off to the administrative judge. They assign a new judge. That's pretty easy. There are 2 other ways that I've seen this play out, and in the last week we had it happen multiple times, but on different days in first appearances, and that is where I am doing the first appearance. Somebody is seeing a judge for the first time within 24 hours of being arrested, and I realize I recognize this person, all right? Now that happens 2 different ways that I saw this past week that I actually brought a different judge. It was actually Judge Thompson that came in and handled them. One is with some of our chronic homeless people. Now, if you know me, you know I have a big heart for helping the homeless. My husband, Steve, and I actually met volunteering with the homeless. So I'm on a first-name basis with a whole lot of people here in town that you see around. The other way is people that I've prosecuted, and I bring somebody else in for that.
How would you balance the tension of being an elected official who's brought in through an election process and being an official officer and then potentially having to come around and run for election?
We can't hear you.
How would you, okay, sorry. How would you balance the political side of the process here in Florida, being an elected judge, potentially having to run for re-election, but also being an officer of the court? What's your philosophy on it?
Whoops, hold on. Drop the timer. Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? Renee Thompson. The question was about balance. And while I do think that is a fleeting term for anyone who is a professional, because whenever you're in balance, maybe something's not right? But the reality of the situation is you have to have well-rounded individuals who can handle themselves in their positions of trust, right? Because that's what being a judge is. It's a position of trust. So yes, you have to be an elected official, but we have rules. We have canons that we're required to follow that allow us to not only tell you about ourselves, but so you can find out who we are throughout this election process. But having had leadership roles in the past, I was president of the Young Lawyers Division of the Florida Bar, which was over 25,000 young lawyers. I can tell you, you have to have someone who knows how to manage their time as well. Because you cannot do your job as a judge and be on a political circuit at the same time. So you have to make decisions and you have to make hard choices.
Time.
Danielle Bruce. That is a very hard question, actually, because I haven't had any experience as a judge yet. I am still working for my office, but I can tell you as an employee of my office, I cannot mix the two at all. There is no mixing and mingling with working and political work. So that means that if I have to do something political, you have to take time off of work. Now, does that mean that the work doesn't get done? No. That means that the work gets done at a different time, on the weekend or nights. You have to learn to balance it, and you have to make sure that the rules are absolutely followed. So there is no question about what you're doing and the legality of it. As a judge, I suppose you have to do quite the same thing, but you have to put your job first because you chose to be a judge, and so you need to do your job serving the community and serving the citizens.
William Harris, that can be a delicate balancing act, I will say. But one of the things I think is most critical and what people respect is remaining humble in the entire process, remaining honest. Don't necessarily change who you are for the public image of yourself. And I think people respect that. And just dealing with what I think people are going to expect of you, you just have to understand that you just have to remain yourself. And you can't necessarily just switch to satisfy what they think of you. And I think honesty is the best way to deal with that issue. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Lori Cotton, one word, integrity. That's how you do it, integrity. Following the rules. First of all, you gotta know what the rules are, and then you gotta follow them. For example, none of us could be here tonight if the other opponents weren't invited, number one, and if we weren't speaking. So if this meeting was just a regular meeting, and we would not be allowed to come in, whether we were speaking or not speaking. If Ms. Delgado had a conservative watch meeting, none of us would be able to come, or we would be breaking the rules. As soon as we're done speaking, we are all going to leave. Because if we were to stay, we would be breaking the rules. If we were to stand out in the parking lot and talk to you after this meeting, we would be breaking the rules. And you do not want a judge who does not follow the rules, do you? It's integrity, doing the right thing. Even when you think nobody is watching what you're doing, it's integrity. And it's not hard to do. You just have to do the right thing.
Leanne Barnes, again, I have to agree. One thing about balancing is we're doing it right now, just like Judge Cotton said. Once you become a candidate, you're just like a sitting judge. You have the same rules that you have to comply with. So we have rules that we have to comply with as a candidate, and those rules are some of the same things that Judge Cotton has said. On top of that, when you're not in front of a crowd, that's what she means about integrity. When you're not in front of a crowd, you have to make sure you're following those same rules that you're following right now. And so integrity is number one, but we're doing the exact same thing you would have to do as a judge.
All right, you've all been excellent with great answers and insights. Final question, we'll do 90 seconds on this one.
Okay, we figured this out.
Make your pitch. Why should people vote for you over the other candidates?
Danielle, that's right into the bullpen, right? Experience. I have experience in the courtroom. I have experience of working. I work hard. I work a lot. I've grown up working hard. You know my family, we work hard. We work all the time. We want to make sure that the job gets done right, and nobody was infringed upon. And that's what is different about me. I work incredibly hard. I have triplets, I have a full-time job, I'm on the code board, and I maintain all of it because I work hard. And I believe in that. I don't believe in slacking off, not that anybody does, but that's something very, very unique to me. And I think that plus the experience that I've had in the courtroom, I spend most of my week in the courtroom, and I have spent many, many years in the courtroom. I have done many trials, I've had many hearings, I have practiced in front of many judges. My experience and my hard work and my dedication to my job, whatever the job is what makes me different.
William Harris. I think what differentiates myself from Judge Cotton, principally at least from what stands out in my mind, I guess, is the fact that I've worked in private practice. Judge Cotton and I were both prosecutors. I think she for 20 years exclusively at the state attorney's office. Myself, I was there for 12 years. Jury trial experience. Everyone had to do Baker Acts and participate in those things. They're civil, but they're not civil in the sense of any kind of litigation that you might deal with working out where I worked at Dan Newland's office. Like I said, we worked in Brevard County, where I first started after finishing at the University of Maryland. We dealt with all kinds of different matters, federal litigation, county court, circuit court, business disputes, eminent domain, like I said, just personal injury, whatever came in the door. Landlord tenant, we typically represented landlords, typically homeowners association work, we used to do all the claim lien work and conduct the meetings there with the different organizations that we represented. I'm currently counsel for the License Review Board for Marion County. Keith Poole, whose candidate is also one of the members on that board. I believe I just have a breadth of experience that I think the private bar would appreciate, because they've been in the trenches before, having to make a living versus just getting a government check. I was talking to them earlier about that. But also, I think overall, thank you.
Lori Cotton, 100% Cotton for the last time. All right. I was appointed by the governor. I am the most qualified person in this race. I was vetted by local interviewers. Governor's office interviewed me. There was an extensive application process, vetting, background checks. All of those things happened. He had both of our names, and the governor chose me. I am the most qualified person. I have the most experience. I have been doing this job for a year. Civil cases, criminal cases, I've got control of my docket, like I told you, and we make sure that things move. And here's the bottom line. You don't have to wonder what kind of a judge I'm going to be. You already know. You can talk to people. You can come. The Sixth Amendment says everybody has the right to a fair and public trial. My courtroom is open. I'm in 2E. Anytime you want to come watch, decide how you think that I'm doing my job, I would love to have you there. I think that it's great when citizens get involved to find out what your court system is doing. Vote for me, Judge Cotton, August 23rd, 100% Cotton.
Leanne Barnes. And I started this journey a while ago, and I did so after losing my father in a tragic car accident. He and my mom used to often talk about what they would do when they retire, and he was 56 years of age, and they didn't get that opportunity to do that. So it was at that time that I told myself that life was just too short to wait for something that you wanted. My father was a veteran and used to work at what's called Wayside Antiques, located in the big red building off 575 going north. And my mom was a school teacher. I consider myself a country girl from the big city of Flemington, Florida. If you know where that is, there's nothing in the city about it. Although we did just get a Dollar General. And I believe that my experience as a mom, my experience as a wife, my experience as a special education teacher, that taught me that you have to look at people as an individual. It may work for one person, may not work for the other. My experience in the courtroom and actually trying cases, actually introducing evidence, actually talking to jurors, actually going to a full jury trial. My experience as a supervisor, as I stated before, where I've had to make hard decisions when it wasn't the popular ones. My experience in serving this community all my life makes me the better candidate for this position, and I ask for your support, and I ask for your vote on August 23rd. Thank you.
Renee Thompson. I ask for your vote on August 23rd because I am the candidate who can bring to this position the civil experience that's necessary to carry out the job. This position will be a civil seat for the next 3 years, and that is what I have practiced my entire career, over 20 years. I have mediated in county court, and I have litigated in county court. My entire life has been dedicated to the civil arena and all that it entails. It is also important for you to understand that I am the type of person who will help have the patience that's required to be in front of individuals who may not understand the process of court systems. My entire career has dealt with education, whether it be law students, whether it be high school students. My parents were both teachers here in Marion County. I believe that people have to have the ability to represent themselves in self-represented litigation because they have to understand what's going on in the courtroom. So you need somebody who has the demeanor and patience who can help teach them what's going on and how to get through that process. It can be very intimidating to go before a judge, especially if you don't have a lawyer sitting next to you. So I bring before you not only a breadth of experience in substantive law, I understand the case management structures and how thresholds are changing in county court, but I also bring to you who I am as a person, genuinely trying to help individuals solve their issues. I'm a problem solver by nature because I believe you, and I hope to bring that to the bench.
All right, so just a reminder, we're going to transition back to some regular meeting business, but before that, take a moment to thank the candidates for being here.